Welcome back to our Closing Gaps by Opening Spaces vlog series. I can't emphasize enough that in this series, we are reflecting on intentional and impactful leadership practices, and with a focus on how we might close gaps for all of our students, and in particular, those students with disabilities, by opening the spaces that result in their access to success. Listen, this is growth mindset learning, and it's bold. It's a belief that our leaders shift makes the difference. So happy new year, happy better here. Let's keep growing and leading, and let's jump right into our conversation. We're on the air. So I'm a huge college football fan, so indulge me for just a moment. Because for me, it's the spirit of the game experience, atmosphere, the fans, the tailgate, the bands. I enjoy it all. And as we wrap up the college football season with the bowl games and the national championship, I can't help but wonder, how am I going to survive my Saturdays for the next several months? Right? No, I'm kidding. What I wanted to do was I wanted to start in the athletic field house and then walk you across campus and take you to the academic schoolhouse. Because college football showcases great athletes and great coaches, and many of those coaches exemplify great leadership. There's so much that I appreciate and have learned from watching college football coaches. And probably the top three coaches in college football, and I say probably, but undoubtedly over the last 5 to 10 years, have been Nick Saban from Alabama, Kirby Smart from Georgia, and my guy, Dabo Sweeney from the national championship Clemson Tigers, right? Uh, well, I've been a Clemson fan from birth. I respect and admire what each of those coaches and leaders have done to impact their program, their student athletes, and really how they've sustained their success over these years. And why do I share that with you? Well, in their book Execution, The Discipline of Getting Things Done, Larry Bossidy and Ram Charan talk about the one responsibility that we can't delegate as leaders, and that is putting the right people in the right place, positioning them to be impactful, and preparing them to lead the way, because that's building capacity. And what sets these three leading coaches apart? Well, each of them have put the right coaches in the right place. They've positioned those coaches to be impactful, and they've really prepared those coaches to lead the way. And as a result, it has strengthened the organizational capacity and the ability for these programs to sustain success. Now, take a slow jog with me to the other end of campus, to the academic schoolhouse, because I want to shout out some school leaders, right? Two of the top nationally ranked principals over the last 2 years have attributed their school's sustained success and student outcome gains due in part to their collaborative leadership and the shared approach to school improvement. And this isn't just research or evidence based. This is real practical experiences from building leaders like you and I. And in fact, I can tell you that I personally benefited immensely as a teacher and leader earlier on in my career from school leaders that created this kind of collaborative leadership environment and engage in these same kinds of intentional leadership practices, right? So, since we're in the schoolhouse, let's take a stroll to your office, principal and or building leader, and let's take a moment to sit down and reflect on truly how intentional we are around building capacity for our heads and leads. And no, I'm not talking about the BC that I often take for my headaches. I'm talking about building capacity, and more specifically, the instructional and leadership capacity for co-teaching excellence in our building. And I know this is not anything new, right? But remember, as I often share, in this series, I simply want to challenge you to reflect, because it is this kind of leadership that can sustain co-teaching excellence and that can result in continued successful outcomes for students. Listen, the best coaches and the best principals around the country are doing this by putting the right individuals in the right place, positioning them to be impactful, and preparing them to lead the way. And that again is building capacity for our heads and our leads. And that's the design that can sustain co-teaching excellence in the classroom. Now, why don't I throw another P in there? Right? And that is professional development for me, because it's the driver that will support co-teaching excellence in the classroom. Now, you might recall those 8 mighty leader shift moves, right? Those core 4 drivers and those core 4 designs. And that's what we're talking about here, right? One of those designs and one of those drivers. And so, as I've done in this series, I want to quickly unpack that driver of support called professional development for my engagement, and unpack that design that can sustain, which is building capacity for our department heads and leads. I know you're probably like, whoa, there's more. And of course, you knew that was coming, right? I had to throw that in there. Well, what is building capacity for our heads and leads? Well, building capacity for co-teaching excellence is really about preparing teachers to lead where they operate. Now, how does this look? It looks like opening the collaborative leadership space. And more specifically, it looks like an intentional shift in how we engage our teachers and create a space for collective responsibility for leading this particular work. It looks like leveraging the talent in our buildings, and it's positioning them to be impactful among their teacher peers and ultimately impacting student outcomes beyond the walls of just their classroom. It looks like preparing teachers to lead co-teaching excellence, which looks like less of you talking about its importance and more of them owning the work and creating the believe in experiences for other teachers. Now, here's some other things to consider. Preparing them to lead the way requires us to obviously develop their leadership skills through real experiences for our teachers. And it requires us to be engaged in supporting co-teaching excellence, that micro interest in the details of what's taking place in the co-teaching classroom, which is far different than micromanagement, okay? Now, before you act and make your next leader move, determine if this is the design you need to help sustain co-teaching excellence in your building. If every other year or two you're having to restart your work around co-teaching excellence, then this perhaps is the design that you develop to help sustain co-teaching excellence and successful outcomes. So the question is, have you created a strong pipeline of co-teaching excellence leaders and a strong pipeline system that in turn supports the continuous flow of successful instructional practices and successful learning outcomes? Now, let's shift and unpack the driver that can help support co-teaching excellence in your building. And that's that professional development for me. So what is it? Well, PD for me is professional development and learning for my engagement. Okay. No, not me and not you. It's for your teachers, and it's personal and it's individualized. So how does this look? Well, I like to look at professional development and learning as a tiered model, much like we would our multi-tiered systems of support. Right? Tier 1 is that PD for all. It's school-wide, it's essential, it's centered around those school-wide instructional practices and strategies. And you've got your Tier 2, that targeted PD, right? It's specific to a small group of individuals. It could be your SPED teachers, it could be your math teachers, it could be your science teachers. Then you've got that Tier 3, that PD for me, the very granular professional development for the individual or teaching team And it's based on data, uh, those observations, specific teacher team needs, and even perhaps needs requested by individuals and teams, right? So here's some other things to consider. Consider that tier 3 PD. And don't think of tier 3 PD for me as some remedial or punitive professional development, but rather the job embedded professional development that he, she, or they exactly need to excel and be impactful in the co teaching setting, or even to be impactful as a co teaching leader. And you can only determine what PD for me is needed if you have the observation data and the dialogue to target that support. Now, before you take action and make your next leader move, determine if this is the driver you need to help support the work in your building. What does professional development and professional learning look like in your building around co-teaching excellence? Maybe you need to start at tier 1, or maybe you just need the data so you can provide some PD for me. Right? Listen, leaders, let's continue to be impactful, but let's be intentional in this work of co-teaching excellence. Today we talked about opening the shared leadership space by building capacity, and opening the professional development space by considering PD for me. And I'm confident that if we open these spaces, then we'll be well on our way to closing those gaps for our students and providing them access to success. Listen, join me for our next vlog series. As always, I've got a story to share, but more importantly, I want to put some practical tools in your hands so that you can prioritize the work and then work on the work.